We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together, we are a stream, at times, even a river. For our shared force, we can travel towards oceans of meaning and seas of connection. Words of Leslie Takashai. Our speaker today is Reverend Jim Vanderweel, a member of the UCBR, member of our church, and the Minister Emeritus of Community Church Unitarian Universalists in New Orleans, who moved to Baton Rouge with his life partner, former UCBR member Shirley Peak, on May the 1st, 2020. Many years earlier, he had asked his father what the wheel stood for at the back of the long name. Each of them had been given at birth and was told that the wheel referred to a windmill. No location for this windmill was given. Several years later, his father said that he had graduated from high school and walked to the enlistment center right after his high school graduation. His mother had agreed this was okay. Just don't join the Navy. Well, he joined the Navy anyway and was glad that he had. When Jim asked if he had asked his mother what she had against the Navy, he said, "I think many of our relatives were in the Marines, and some of them did not return." Today's message centers on recent revelation Reverend Jim would like to share with us today. That the Garden of Eden featured the Western cultures led him to study the myths and religions of other peoples and cultures around the world. And this led him to Joseph Campbell, and his study of Campbell's writing prepared Jim to seek our faith, Unitarian Universalism, and moved him to pursue UU congregational ministry in Germantown, Maryland, New Orleans, and Kirkland, Kirkland, Washington. We welcome Reverend Jim to the podium for a brief introduction to today's service.
Thank you so much, Melanie. It is good to be here today. Truly a delight for me. When Reverend Nathan asked me to be a substitute preacher, 2 Sundays before Mardi Gras, he said few people would be here. I said that made no difference to me. I was glad to be able to help, and I knew that he and our ministers have worked very hard over the course of the last couple of years and was willing to say, go away, have some fun, refresh yourself. You deserve it. Probably more time than you get. You deserve a little time off. However, I must tell you, my friends, that I am pleased I retired in 2019. Before COVID, before virtual services, before that clunky process of delivering a message to folks like you while talking to a wall. I am glad that we have people with the technical skills my generation did not benefit from to step in. One of the pleasures of my substitute role in the pulpit today is it is like visiting my grandchildren. I can enjoy it for a while, and then I go home. Their parents take over. Your ministers take over and do what they can to help us move down this pathway of life. When Reverend Nathan called and invited me here, I had just visited a site online that listed impactful and moving lyrics in the popular music of the 1960s. This appealed to me because music was one of the things that I really appreciated about Louisiana when I moved to Louisiana. And as I had scanned down that list, one of the things I was thinking of, because of process I had been working through in reassessing my life, was would the Garden of Eden be on that list? This is a song I once heard by John Dawson, its lyricist, and sung by the New Riders of the Purple Sage, who I had gone to see because I wanted to see in the 1960s, the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia. I mean, Jerry Garcia was the steel guitarist for the New Riders, and he came out and said in the song, "We live in the Garden of Eden." Yeah, I don't know why we want to tear the whole thing down. We live in the Garden of Eden, yeah. I don't know why we want to tear the whole thing down. And so, with that, as my heart shouted amen, I thought back to the garden mythos, which has led America to some of the dangers of thinking that our world is a place they can do anything they want to. And as my spirit had developed over time, I have realized that that song reminded me of Pete Seeger, who in the 50s and 60s got out front and confronted some of the difficulties which he saw, and of Goethe and Faust, where the gardens and the soils of the earth were considered chunks of dirt just waiting for a developer. So let me tell you, it is a pleasure to be here with you, and I am very happy to take a little bit of time with you to do something that normally I would not do in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, dig into some of the steps along the way with you, mindful of the words shared by Reverend Leslie Takahashi, that we gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. I invite you, if you would at this time, to rise together and join in a spirit that it has led me to this faith, placing our heart in the holiest of holy places.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place.
My name is Melanie Mayu, and I am your worship associate this morning. And it is a delight to welcome you to this holy place, whether you are here in the sanctuary with us or whether you are joining us online. Welcome to our house of worship, in which we acknowledge our presence on land that was once stolen from the Choctaw, Chitmacha, Homa, Bayugula tribes who lived here or very near to here. We have several announcements. First of all, from RE. In February and March, in conjunction with the Michael Dowd Weekend, during middle hour, adults and teens are invited to participate in nurturing our nature connection. Art, movement, music, ritual, a different experience each week, 10:15 to 11:15 every Sunday morning. If your child is in kindergarten, first grade, or in 7th through 8th grade, registration is due for participation in Our Whole Lives for those age levels. Email Kathy Smith, our Director of Family Ministries, for more information. And also, the Sixth Source Circle will meet after the 11:30 service this morning in room 1. And now we have a special video from the auction team.
This is great, huh?
It's wonderful.
This auction retirement, been awesome.
Can't beat it. Though, you know, I have been hearing rumblings about people asking, you know, is there going to be another auction ever? And really, it's ramping up. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I mean, the team would have to come aboard for that. I mean,
Well, maybe we should ask them.
we could. Let's gather and ask them.
Okay.
Do the auction? No.
No. We went through this 4 years ago. We pledged no more auctions.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, it's so much work. Do we really need the money?
Absolutely not.
Did you say auction?
No, not a chance.
No, thank you.
Nope.
Oh, hail to the no.
No, baby, you can't say that.
Why? Yes, you can.
No, she can't. Nope. We could maybe get some extra volunteers. That would spread the work out more. The team would get a little bit more of a break.
Oh, yeah, and we could find a couple of volunteers who would be, wouldn't mind being mentored, auction interns like.
Interns.
And that way, next time, they can help.
Well, maybe we should ask the team again.
All right. If we do, though, we're going back into retirement after that, right? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Well, maybe. I mean, who wants to do the auction again?
I don't know. Maybe.
Probably, maybe. But is there going to be shrimp?
But is there going to be pizza?
Wait. What if we end that very long checkout process and just don't even do it?
And end earlier in the evening.
We could do fewer items.
And what if we made the auction more accessible?
Like hybrid for folks who are on property and off property.
Yes.
But you know, if we have fewer items, we might have to let them know that they might have to pay more for the items because we're not going to have as many.
That's true. Why don't we ask the team?
Yes, one more ask.
Oh, you asked me that 3 years ago, and every year since, and the answer's been no. Would I want to do it this year? Sure, why not?
Yes, absolutely, because I would like to buy me some new experiences.
Yes.
Sure, we need the money, but no crystal vases, please.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
And what about a theme?
I don't know. What about something like sustainability and, you know,
Like eco-friendly?
yeah, something about Unitarians going green.
Yeah. So it'd be like the impromptu auction, Unitarian Church impromptu auction, Unitarians going green,
Yes,
April 1st,
yes,
6 o'clock.
yes. And hopefully it'll focus on simplifying life in this complicated world.
I think that's a great idea. So we have a plan. See you April 1st. Let's do it. April 1st, right?
April 1st, primero de abril, however you want to say it. April 1.
April 1st.
April 1st.
April 1st.
It's so exciting to learn that our auction night will be back this year. It's always been such fun.
April 1st.
Before we enter into this time of placing stones in our congregation here, we want to be aware, I think, that this is a time of challenge, and I really appreciate this video because of change is a part of our lives. It has been mine, and I think all of us, and I could think of no better example than what we just saw of the ability to change and move forward. It's also important, though, to realize that we live in a world where people in Pakistan are still recovering from the flooding and and that the recovery from disaster is a long-haul process. It's not something that happens quickly. And that Turkey and Syria have been devastated by an earthquake that happened there with tremendous loss of life and personal tragedy. So let us together be mindful of these experiences, recalling perhaps too the difficulties we have faced in our life, and consider together the prayer I will share with you, with Love as My Guide, by Reverend Cindy Terlazzo. Amidst the swirl of life's challenges and fears, and even moments of crisis, I make time to gaze at the night sky to see the vastness there, and to remember that this moment in time is but a flicker, not an inconsequential flicker, for what I do and think now does matter. My work, though, is to let the debris of this world pass by while I anchor myself to what I know is true. Love, kindness, compassion, and caring for this precious life, this precious planet, and all that calls this place home. This is my North Star. With love as my guide, how can I possibly go wrong?
We now enter into the time of our service where we will place stones in the chalice. There are several cards for us to sign. One to Jerry Stewart, who is recovering from a recent hospitalization. One for Kayla Saltz Clark, who is recovering from surgery. And Reverend Jim, would you please place a stone in memory of a death of a friend of the church, Ron Boudreau. And now those who would like could either line up on the east or west wall to come and place a stone in the chalice so that you may be more present with us. Now the words for the lighting of our chalice. In hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
Morning, y'all. On your way in this morning, you may have picked up a mint leaf or a bit of rosemary. If you did not, our ushers have baskets and they're going to come forward. So if you have your mint leaf or your piece of rosemary, I'd invite you now to hold it in your hand. If you don't, if you just lift your hand so that David and Charlie know to come and bring you one, and it may take a minute, they will come to the front. And so for those people who are online, if you have anything in your general vicinity nearby that is aromatic or is a part of nature, perhaps a flower or a houseplant or a bit of herb from your garden, this is a time to pick it up and hold it in your hand as we go through this exercise together. So part of this is a bit of remembering because, well, I'm just going to invite you to hold that leaf or that flower or that plant or whatever it is at home that you are holding. Hold it in your hand and think about a couple of these questions, answering them quietly in your thoughts or whispering to the person next to you. How would you describe the leaf that is in your hand? Is it delicate or sturdy? Fuzzy or smooth? If you squeeze it gently, rub it across your skin, how does it smell? Is it a familiar scent or is it something new to you? What does it make you think of? And I'll ask a couple of other questions. If I asked you to imagine a different kind of leaf, if I asked you to imagine holding a pine needle, can you feel how much pressure it would take to bend the pine needle in half? If I asked you to imagine holding a single rose petal, can you feel how velvety soft it would be to stroke it? If I asked you to imagine holding a blueberry or a raspberry, can you feel how soft and squishy it is? And how gooey it is if you squeeze it? So most of us, if not all of us, know the answers to those questions, whether or not we're holding the pine needle or the rose leaf or the berry in our hands. In our earliest childhood, we poked and we prodded and we squeezed all of the plants that we came across. Those memories are so deeply ingrained, we don't even remember how we know it. We just do. They have become a part of us because someone took the time to walk with us in the forest or hand us a berry. And we human beings, we are hardwired to remember the sensory experiences we have before we even have words for them. So the reading is from Mary Oliver, Blue Iris. Teach the children. We don't matter so much, but the children do. Show them the daisies and the pale hepatica. Teach them the taste of sassafras and wintergreen, the lives of blue sailors, mallows, sunbursts, the moccasin flowers, and the frisky ones, inkberry, lamb's quarters, blueberries, and the aromatic ones, rosemary, oregano. Give them peppermint to put in their pockets as they go to school. Give them the fields and the woods and the possibility of the world salvaged from the lords of profit. Stand them in the stream, head them upstream. Rejoice as they learn to love this green space that they live in, its sticks and its leaves and the silent, beautiful blossoms. Attention is the beginning of devotion.
Our first reading this morning is from Genesis 1:26 and Matthew 6:28 through 29. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And why take ye thought of raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these."
Thrown out of the Garden of Eden. Mythos. Where did we come from? How did we get here? Common questions around the world. Storytellers and fire starters drew from the snippets of their ancestors, intertwined with observations of life to craft creation accounts which became for them a tree of life for their community. From this, their tribal root grew the trunks and the branches which carried the flavor and texture of a cultural heritage upwards and onwards from time immemorial into the 21st century. I have been centering during these last several months, meditating, my friends, on my 74 years of life, preparing for the next chapter. This centering process was comforted inside me when Viola Davis responded to her award by a Grammy by saying, "I have always liked the Cherokee birth blessing. May you live long enough to know why you were born." The words I share with you today reflect a process that has happened with me, but it has also happened within Unitarian Universalist heritage. I think of a time when the Puritan ancestors who came to New England were involved in burning women, primarily, in Salem, who paid attention to what was happening on the earth. And from this, the faith that drew me in focuses on the inherent dignity and worth of every person. That, my friends, is quite a transition. The story I share with you today is one of my life. And it has unfolded in a similar type of path, and that is not unusual. We all move and change over time. And most of that change has a point at a beginning. A creation account out of several traditions, or many traditions around the world. Mircea Eliade, the professor of history at the University of Chicago in the late 20th century, identified 5 creation stories: from nothing to something, ex nihilo, through divine thought or dream. 2 is a bird or an amphibian, an earth diver, plunging into a primordial ocean. 3, from a series of worlds unfolding as if climbing a staircase. 4, dismemberment of a primordial being. 5, the cracking of a cosmic egg, or bringing order out of chaos. It was a relief to me to learn more about the world's creation account somewhere in the 1980s or 90s. But it's also true that the only creation account that I had heard in the first 12 to 15 years of my life featured the Garden of Eden. But the mythos of my tradition in which I was raised was more disturbing to me in my young mind and was taught within my church, school, and family. It was not of the Garden of Eden. What my ears heard there was that the Bible is God's word, the only true and complete word of God, and the only path to salvation, along with the acceptance of 5 creeds, of course. The authors of that outworking of the creation account had somehow miraculously received his holy words and passed them on. Anyone who altered the text of the Bible by a jot or a tittle, I was told, would never walk through the gates of heaven. Against this mythos, my concerns about Genesis 1:26 grew ever more difficult within me. My observations of life had led me to the opinion that dominion was never good. I had never seen a good result for anybody, the dominator or the person who was being put under someone's control. And while still a church member in that tradition, with its accept the Bible totally and completely mythos because it reigned supreme, my consciousness of life had still led me to the belief that dominion would not have been improved by Jesus. Just a few verses after Jesus shared the Lord's Prayer with those who had gathered around him in the Sermon on the Mount, he turned their and our attention to a seemingly universal desire among the people with whom we live, and this affects many of us as well, because this is our dominant paradigm, to fill their closets with the finest designer apparel. And for this, they have worked hard, perhaps often too hard, and dominated those whose opinions differed from theirs in mainstream society. Jesus had warned these people. He said, "The lilies of the field are growing without toil, neither do they spin, and they are taken care of." God takes care of them. And I say to you that even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like any of these. At about 14 or 15, my wrestling mind had become so aggrieved by this finest of clothes versus bright flowers insight that when I turned to my evening prayers, part of my tradition, from what I recollect, it went something like this: "O God, Spirit flowing through all, I do not know why I have prayed the way that I have. My consciousness, which I have been encouraged to pursue, has led me to believe that you are my creator, my living spirit in this world, and perhaps nothing at all like I am told in the family in which I have been raised. Even the scriptures, which I have read closely, do not enforce a path through life, which I have been told is a holy path. And because I cannot resolve this now, and do not know what to do with this complexity in my life at this time, I can no longer continue to mouth these empty words. I cannot feel them to be true. And I must withdraw for a time until my questions are answered. And pray, no, I promise that I will return to you in prayer sometime again." Mythos. Before we turn from mythos to mystery, let us pause for a time of reflection and today's offering.
It is time now for us all to join together as we do the spiritual practice of gathering our morning offering. As we are wont to do, we share our offering every month with a different group, and this month it is Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. Those of you who are joining us online, there are instructions also if you would also like to join in this practice of giving our morning's offering. So if the ushers will please come forward, we will now collect the offering. Our second reading, Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image and likeness, and let them rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the tame animals, over all the earth, and over all the small crawling animals on the earth." Matthew 6:28-29. And why do you worry about clothes? Look at how the lilies in the field grow. They don't work or make clothes for themselves, toil or spin thread. But I tell you that even Solomon, with all of his riches and all of his glory, was not dressed as beautifully as one of these flowers.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate the love you are showing for our congregation and willingness to step forward and share with us in that way. The second reading of that text was from the Expanded Bible. Its words were just a little bit different than those in the King James Version, which I read when I was a child. That was part of the switch, I think, in my life to be willing to step out, because what I found in academia is that this jot and the tittle thing that I have been raised at, do not alter or you will go to hell thing. Just tell it like it is, if that's okay. Was not in academia in any of the seminaries I attended, and I attended several of them. Thrown out of the garden, mystery. We begin with this with an understanding that the origin of mythos found in the Greek word muthos. And mystery's Greek origin is mysterion. Muthos and mysterion both begin with mu, the 14th Greek letter, which was often used to refer to water. As you begin to piece these things together, it's interesting that water has much to do with several of the 5 creation accounts. Muthos is a tale in Greek, an ancient tale in English, and mysterion translates as mystery or puzzle or religion or hidden sensations. All of these contribute to understanding the mysteries we go through in our lives. As for mythos, I suspect many of us know people who love their ancient tales, whatever its origins may have been, and that some here may have friends or family members who believe that even a small step away from their faith's mythic roots could be or would be disastrous. And that made the fact that that occurs around us makes leaving a childhood faith difficult for anybody. I was quite unnerved at the beginning of my journey into the next chapter, mystery. A few of the companions with whom I was closest were not willing to take on the challenge of stepping away from their faith and mysteriously disappeared from life much too soon. My path of study often dropped me into a rut because I had never really figured out what I wished to do with my hobgoblin array of religion, myth, history, philosophy, cosmology, sociology. And I had lost a few friends along the way who were not as interested in the world of religions as I was. The perception of the scriptures that there are still Pharisees and Sadducees in the 20th and 21st century was also a concern of mine and remains a concern. And it has grown over time because I have seen increased catastrophe. I have lived in Washington, D.C., heard a plane fly over my head that went to the Pentagon and crashed in the side of the Pentagon on 9/11. I was a minister to a congregation in New Orleans in 2005. And I can see that perhaps it may be possible that we have contributed to much of the difficulties that we see around us today. The mystery path had as many ruts as there were on the mythos path at its beginnings. The road not taken by Robert Frost swung through my head many times during those years. And several years later, when I studied reincarnation and introduced there to the concept that our spirits could have chosen where they would be born. In fact, they claimed that often happened. My gut reaction was no, no, no. The spirit residing in me would never have chosen Calvinism, predestination, the constraints of not just 10, but 10,000 commandments. I say constraints because that felt to me like a cage, and rather than describe what I felt like with a cage, I should tell you that Shirley and I recently bought Coco. And Coco, our pet puppy, a terrier, was quite animated at times, yes. And if you open your eyes and take a look at that terrier, I think you can kind of contemplate what might have happened when we decided that perhaps she should not roam around in the back seat, but we might put her in a crate in the car when we went for a little travel. Our dear Coco kicked and complained and screamed and jumped out of both of our arms combined to find the ground again rather than climb into that cage. Cages, whatever they may be, are not just for those of us who wish to be a free spirit. And that injustice is really a concern of mine here in Louisiana. I'll leave that for a minute. another wave was also happening to me at that time, and I could see it too. Love, peace, care, shepherding, community had grown up along with a few loops spinning around in my mind. I would read Emerson, for example, stop for a time, but his spirit continued to find me. I plotted astrology charts now and then, moved to other sources, and then my interest in the stars returned. The Mayan calendar led to several waves of Mayan study into their cosmology, numerical expertise, calendric system, culture, perceptions of the divine, and astronomical accuracy in the placement and impact of the planet and the stars on family life, cultural life. The shadow to this, per Jung, is that although I have 4.5 Mayan pyramids on the fourth finger of my left hand, I have never seen a Mayan pyramid or climbed one. And I think I'm going to put that on my bucket list. It's going to happen. Through this mystery chapter and through its ruts, I was also promoted to a big curiosity about my life and our life, and helped develop a hope-filled vision of this planet. A few of the mystery chapter smooth spots are that I could easily have lost my life several times, and afterwards, when I realized I still had breath, a light seemed to blow through me and said, "You may have a guardian angel. Perhaps you were called here for a service you do not yet know." Another light, Joseph Campbell on TV. An Emerson spirit led my path from the Campbell Foundation retreats to my first Unitarian Universalist church. I'm sure of it. A huge light in my life was this congregation's care, many of you, for the post-KUUs of New Orleans. A huge light. And then meeting Shirley Peak here, the love of my life. She cared for me post-Katrina in New Orleans, and I needed that and placed this Mayan ring on my finger. A blessing, a huge blessing. There are many more smooth spots. Life is good, a blessing. But one day, and this is an important one, a visitor walked into my office and said he had the same last name that I did. And when he asked if I knew the meaning of wheel, because he had looked up all the wheels and he said there weren't Vander wheels, and he said there weren't many around the country, I told him that I had been told it was a windmill. And he said, no. He said, let me tell you what it is. He said, Vela used to be a small town on an island in the Zuider Zee. Our ancestors were shepherds on that island, which was a great place to raise sheep because you did not need any fences. He said, until a cyclone developed in the North Atlantic, which washed the island away. And then went on to tell me that many of our ancestors settled in Rotterdam, and many became merchant marines. These are all good things, my friends. Smooth surfaces, boons, and have been for me a balm in Gilead. And so I ask you, if you would, to join together once again, and let's rise in singing, "There is a balm in Gilead."
There rejoice, my soul, again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. If you cannot preach like Peter, if you cannot pray like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus and say he died for all. Oh, there is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
Thrown out of the Garden of Eden, call, 3rd chapter. When we returned to Louisiana from Seattle, Washington area, I had already decided that it was important for me to be working with the Together Louisiana organization, as well as Voice of the Ex-Offenders. These two organizations I knew were here and were involved in doing some very important work. But at the same time as that happened, and as I began to get involved in this area, I realized that there was a strong push in Louisiana to be more conscious and more aware of the fact that climate change was a real issue here. The call to the Capitol of a special session to look at insurance, that's a difficulty that didn't need to have happened, in my book, had we been doing a better job of taking care of our planet. So as I reached this point of considering what I should do, because I'd been out there and engaged with a number of organizations, it struck me that probably the first thing I should do is begin to look at the sources which were important to me. And I think it's critical to stop here for just a second and take a look at the Jewish tradition as it relates to several verses in the early part of the Bible. In the stewardship paradigm, Rabbi Sachs writes that Genesis chapter 1 is only one side of the complex biblical equation. It is balanced by the narrative of Genesis chapter 2, which features a second creation narrative that focuses on humans and their place in the Garden of Eden. The first person is set in the garden to work it and take care of it. The two Hebrew verbs here used are significant. The first, lahovah, literally means to serve. The humans being is thus both master and servant in nature. The second, leshomra, means to guard it. This is the verb used in later biblical legislation to describe the responsibilities of a guardian of property that belongs to someone else. And then, turning to the Christian tradition of this, I see a biblical view of dominion stewardship It says the Apostle John tells us that God loved the world, the entire creation, the cosmos in the Greek, so much that he gave his Son to those who believe in him. Our lives and work here are not about ourselves, but instead the good of the entire created order. We have a unique and critical role to play, however small it may look to us, in fulfilling God's purposes for the world. These are big shifts of comprehension for me. Recently, I ran into Pastor Harry Joseph of the Mount Triumph Baptist Church in Donaldsonville. And in our conversation about what is going on in our world, and he is an environmental advocate, he said, through the 40-plus years of my ministry, I have said many times that the biblical prophets shared lessons of life which can keep spinning out with relevancy over the many centuries which has separated us from them. Their admonitions of instruction, their guidelines for life are as relevant for you and I today as they were for those who heard them then. We had better be listening now. As the winds have whipped up more frequently against us, it has become even more urgent for us to pay greater attention to their concern about the practices and patterns of our lives. So here I was, involved in contemplating what I should be doing, feeling alive, not wanting to be a navel gazer, and thinking that perhaps congregational ministry being done for me, there was some other way in which I could be of service. I had begun working with the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition over the course of these last few months. And in that organization, we had come to the realization that it was important for us to be talking more about the fact that our planet should be considered to a greater degree in which it has been in much of the narrative we have seen running around recently. We formed a coalition in there, and I chose to lead that coalition. We have Jewish, we have Arab, we have Unitarian Universalist and a Methodist minister, all involved in looking for the sources in our traditions which point to the importance of changing some of the narrative. One of the things that struck us was a nice little video of a woman in Costa Rica. They have 99.8% of their energy sources that come to their house are from renewable sources. Much better than most of us, and much better than we are doing here in the United States. And one of the things that she said was that, she said, why are you doing this? She was asked, and she said, you can just say that it is our impression that we are doing all that we can do to heal our hurting planet. Another light bulb went out in my mind. There are ways to look at our planet, not so much as just a thing, but as a living, breathing supplier of life to all of us. And this led me back to one of the sources that I have found in the past to be very interesting, a book by Carl Johann Koloman, which came out in 2019. A scientist. He's looking at the new theory of origins, explaining consciousness, the Big Bang, fine-tuning dark matter, and the evolution of life and human history. And in it, he suggests that our planet is, in fact, living, that the divine had intention and brought to life in this planet the opportunity to move forward together. And its intention was for all of us to continue to expand our consciousness until we reached a point of being able to live together on this planet of peace, justice, compassion, care, all of those things which make me so happy to be here with you in this congregation today. There is much going on in this world. But as I look at the fact that the sportsman's paradise to which I came seems to be slipping away, just like the Garden of Eden has slipped away from us. It is an imperative, my friends, that we begin, I think, to look at this planet as a living being, full of life, providing us with life, just as it has the ants in the anthills, just as the flowers that do nothing sparkle in the field, just as the birds who can get up and fly away. And so I have reached the point where in my conversations with the groups of climate activists with whom I am working, I have said several times, I am no longer a congregational minister. That chapter of my life has been completed. But I am moving toward a call of being a minister. Another minister will be on my card, representing our living earth. And with that, I want to leave you. It has been a blessing to be here. I hope there were a few nuggets of this message which made some sense to some of you, and blessings to you all. It is good to be with you, my friends. We are going to close with this little light.
Little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
On the break, Leslie Takahashi. all that we have ever loved and all that we have ever been stands with us on the brink of all that we aspire to create, a deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope, a deeper joy in this life we share. Blessed be. Go in peace.